What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're here with Dr. Tina Coleman. She is the owner of CNA to MD, and also she is an author of a new book called How to Craft Life's Blueprint. And we looked at some of the book. We wanted to ask Dr. Tina some questions. She's also a radiologist. So we definitely thank her for coming to the show today.
Hey, Phil, thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege to be here.
All right, Dr. Tina, you was on before. So let me ask you a question. How things have been since the last time you've been on?
Well, things have been relatively busy, getting involved and doing my passion. But things have also gotten very, very clear for me. I've gotten a lot of clarity around my passion, my dream, my vision. And I was usually very single-minded and driven, but now it's like I've dropped the extra baggage and I'm really relentless in my pursuit in making diversity in medicine and healthcare in general a reality in America.
So you say you're single-minded. What do you mean by that?
Phil, everybody has great ideas, right? There's ideas coming all the time, ideas coming, but when you concentrate your efforts on one idea, in my opinion, that's when you really achieve success. And that's what a lot of this book is about. It's about focusing on that one thing you want and then writing your blueprint to then match that determination, that drive, and going all in essentially on your dreams. You're not going to bet. No one else is going to bet on you. You have to bet on yourself and then craft a blueprint and come with a level of dedication that matches the passion that you claim to have.
Okay, so were you always this, mindset? I mean, because of reading the book, you came from Cameroon, like I say, what, family of 8? You say you were the 5th child, correct?
5th girl, yep.
5th girl, okay. And you said in a patriarchal society, correct?
Very, very much so.
Okay. So I want to touch on that. Do you look at the climate in America, especially in the Black community, is more matriarchal, but in your country, it's more patriarchal. What do you think about that dynamic and how it plays on the family structure and support that you see here in America versus in Cameroon?
So for a couple of things, first of all, I think that the idea of the U.S. society or Black society here being more matriarchal is more an idea of survival, right? Necessity. I think that in a lot of 2-family households, men still run the show, period. For most people in America and in Cameroon. That being said, back home, a lot of people, marriages are sometimes out of convenience as a way to climb society, and stability. And basically the man is the breadwinner and he earns, and what he decides goes, and the woman is an accessory, if not just ownership in some sense. Not all marriages. Don't get me wrong. I don't want people coming after me, but a lot of times women have not had financial independence, which then translates in lack of free thinking in their marriage, and that's been changing for women in Africa over the past 20 years or so.
Okay, so in Cameroon, like I said, you got to the point that you came here. How did you come here? I mean, did your parents just leave, or how did that work?
Phil, I grew up in a very, very interesting household. My parents are both journalists, Al and Marie Femenki, shout out to them. And they were incredible. It was a very dichotomous balance. I talk about it in my book. My mom is hardcore Christian, Holy Ghost, fire, blessed, holy water, everything all the way. My dad, on the other hand, is such an analytical and free thinker. And growing up, raising 6 girls in a society that was mostly determined by men, he was incredibly determined to make us free thinkers, to give us the freedom to choose for ourselves. And so what our parents did is really, it was so divided. My mom was like, trust God, trust society, trust the higher ups, always follow the rule, always follow the law. My dad was like, no, screw that. Question everything. Question faith, question God, question work, question science, be inquisitive, push the boundaries. And so in my book, the tagline, I said, at the end, I became a science-loving, God-fearing, status quo challenging revolutionary. And that's something that I started at a very, very young age, which my parents, much to their credit, really encouraged my siblings and I to champion on. So even though the society was telling us, hey, stay in your place, I had teachers as young as 13 telling me you could never be a physician. You should just get married and work. My parents, I'm telling you, my father specifically, empowered us to think for ourselves, to push the boundaries, and to question every societal norm that we've ever faced. And I cannot be more thankful for that.
Okay, so when did you come to the United States?
I was 18 years old when I came.
Okay, so you came on more so like a student visa?
I came as a student, yes. I came after high school. I had the option of, my parents were middle class back home, and they said, if you can find a place where we can afford, we'll support you for college. And so my options at that time were United States, England, or France. And as far as Africa, my two options were South Africa or Senegal, when my parents lived at the time. And so I weighed my options and I picked the US. I chose Louisiana.
Okay, so in your country, we notice that a lot of people are migrating out of places like Cameroon and go, even maybe even take that track through Libya, which is a dangerous thing to do right now. What is it? Because a lot of people say, well, we talk about going to the continent, but then you got people coming from the continent trying to get inside the United States. So is it more so economics that's the issue, an opportunity? Or what is it that make people want to, leave? Maybe we talk about at least Cameroon. What makes them want to leave there?
Well, it's a couple of reasons. Number one, we'll take it first on the global level, right? A society that migrates out, that goes out, tends to be more successful. The West has done that consistently for years. Rome was the most successful, one of the most successful empires of our time. Not the most, but one of the most. And the reason was like they went out, Caesar went out and established later versions of the Roman Empire around the world. And so any society that looks outwards tends to, in general, spread out the idea of what they're putting out. And so that's one place globally. Secondly, the other dichotomy of Africa is that most countries in Africa are actually underemployed. So they don't have enough workforce to make the countries run as smoothly as possible. But then the perplexing thing is that a lot of young people can't find jobs. And so it's a combination of both. That inquisitiveness, that idea is like, what else is out there? How do I find myself? How do I define myself outside of this culture? That's pushing a lot of people to look further out. And for some people, it's just the economic benefits, so the work. If you look at that question, you have to ask yourself, why did Christopher Columbus come here? Why do they leave? Why did they send explorers? Why did the initial Portuguese ships go out? Is that idea of wanting to know the unknown, wanting to push outside the boundary? And so I think it's a balance of both. And for everybody, you have to have your drive, your push. I have cousins, I have friends that have never left Cameroon. They're in the government, they're assistant ministers, prime minister, whatever. My friend is not prime minister, but they work in the ministry. They have good positions, they're directors. They get to live like kings, have maids, have drivers. And that life, it depends on what you really want and how you position yourself. So it's a combination of both. Yes, people leave every day risking their life to go try something new somewhere else. But that's also true of the rest of the world. And if you really look at immigration into Africa versus immigration out of Africa, you notice that there are more people going in than out.
Okay, now you mentioned your family was middle class, and you basically in your book you was talking about you have in your family 6 registered nurses, 2 master's degree holders, including an ARNP. What is that? ARNP.
So advanced registered nurse practitioner. One of my sisters, my older sister, Bella, she's a nurse practitioner practicing in Florida.
Okay, yeah, one is a Juris Doctor, and I guess the MD would be you, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so if people watching, they say, well, she don't come from the average African family, what would you say to
that? Check my background, check my credentials, check my numbers, check my history. I am from the quintessential average. When I say average African family, I'm exactly that. I'm the 5th girl in a group of really boisterous and amazing siblings. My siblings are incredible. Some of the smartest people I know, shout out to my family, whatever. But from a young age, I wasn't anything special. I was just the fifth girl, right? In a long group of girls in a society that glorifies the male child. So believe me when I say there was nothing special about me growing up.
Okay, now it's something in your book you wrote. I thought that was interesting. I kind of want to go through it with you in your own words. I know what you wrote down, but I want to ask you a question. You said something. We kind of talk about this a lot on our channel. The system is rigged. Now what?
Yep. People get stuck there, Phil. I cannot tell you. When I came to America, right, I had to learn a new system. I had to see how the game was played. I knew it was a chess game, but I didn't know the players yet, right? You have the credit system, you have the judicial system, you have the legal system, you have the financial system, you have the education system, and then you have the entrepreneurial system, which is a big part of this family, of this country, and how that drive goes forward. So I had to sit back and say, what do I have? What arsenals do I have in my pocket? And how do I go from point A to B? That started with me just writing out a plan on the paper. Like, this is who I am, right? I'm not that person right now, but that person is inside of me. So how do I live as an 18-year-old? How do I make decisions that the 35-year-old version of me, the 50-year-old version of me will honor? Because that 50-year-old woman inside of me, she's banking on me making the right decisions today. So a lot of things that I found that people got stuck on is like, you're spending all your time, all your energy saying the system is rigged, it's not fair, it's set up against us. They don't want us. Okay, we get that. Now what? Now, what's the next step? And so for me personally, I was like, I know the system is rigged. I've seen colonialism firsthand. I've read enough about history and studied enough the patterns to see, hey, this thing is like Minesweeper, right? You have to just know like where to land your squares. Where you land, you could blow up in your face. So it's like, I need to be strategic and not focus all that energy in just be crying, the system is rigged, the system is rigged, the system is rigged. That is literally the first step. But most people I meet get hung up on that step. They don't see a way out of the system being rigged. The system is rigged, but people are winning. How do I play the game at that level? How do I level up to do what they're doing and even surpass it? So that's one of the reasons why I wrote this book. It's like most people I meet are just like, it's not fair. I can't make it. I don't have anything. I don't have a CNA. I don't have a this, and in my book, I go into details, taking Greyhound buses. How do I work? How do I apply for that first CNA license? How do I leverage what I have and talk to the people that I know to get to where I need to be? Because one thing I've known is that hustle attracts hustle. So when you start rolling the ball, people will show up to help you if you have that hustle, that initiative, that push. But you cannot be stuck at a system is rigged. It's already rigged. We know that. Period. Now, what do we do?
Okay, so what if a person watching and they say, well, according to what she's saying, even though she came from Cameroon, she still had a 2-parent household and her family's successful, but a lot of us come from single parent households in America, and a lot of our family issue is by design. And how do we do that coming from single parent households where the economics is not the same as would be a 2-parent household in America? What would you say to that person is maybe in that situation?
I would say that life gives us all challenges. Yes, I came from a 2-parent household, but I was also molested at age 5. Okay. I may have come from a 2-parent household, but that doesn't mean I don't have hardships. It's just a matter of like, everyone has but life is going to give you body shots. It's like boxing. You're going to take body shots, period. And you can't look at someone else's body shot and say, well, that's less than mine. Or you never know. People lose their minds over a divorce. That's just, you know what I mean? Like they completely lose who they are.
I've been through it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You lose yourself because of people become drug addicted because of an injury of the arm. It's just everyone processes at a different level. And for you to really take ownership of your life, this is something that Kellen, my husband, and I have really worked on in the past. And I was doing this as a young child, but I really did not understand was everything is my fault. Everything. Even being molested as a child, I take it as my fault. Now, what do I do with that information?
Whoa, Dr. Tina. Hold on. I got to stop you.
Stop me there.
Hold on, Dr. Tina. Hold on. Did you just say it was your fault that you was molested?
I could not control the situation that I'm around, right? The act of molestation was not my fault, but my reaction to it as an adult is my fault. What I do with that information, I will never allow myself to be a prisoner of someone else's act. Being willing, being vulnerable enough to say that maybe this happened. How do I leverage from there? Part of being, I'm telling you, Phil, one of the most freeing things is being able to give forgiveness that will never be asked. And forgiveness doesn't mean acceptance of the person in your life. It means freeing yourself from the prison of paying the price for someone else's sins. You know what I mean? And so taking stock of your situation, you two-parent household, give me your reasons. Two-parent household, I don't have a parent, my parents didn't love me. I know people from two-parents households that are still flailing. My parents didn't love me enough. They worked too much. My dad cheated. Whatever it is, that person, that's them. How do you take ownership of who you are to craft the man, the woman, the person that you want to be? I can't be responsible for other people's decisions, but this woman, this person sitting in front of you today, she takes 100% ownership of her life. And I try to do the best with what I have right now. I can't bank on what someone else did. I can only do what I can do with the information I have today. And that has been my fighting mantra.
Okay. Now I would say you and maybe some others are a special, I would say a special case in dealing with that. But what if a person, because you've had people that have been molested and they maybe not deal with it in that way, but it's come out and they become promiscuous.
Yeah.
There's also, some people come out and they decide down the line to join the alphabet community, and a lot of people who have joined the alphabet community, a lot of it is linked to molestation if you look at the numbers. So what would you say to those people? Do they need to go to counseling if they can't deal with that issue? Because some people don't get past it like you have.
So the first thing I would say, you're looking at somebody that's been in therapy for years. Okay. Therapy is absolutely necessary. I think that it's not talked about enough in our society. I think it's not talked about enough in the Black community. I went through therapy. I had it for multiple years, and I am a big proponent of therapy. And that's one of my goals for 2020 is to be in therapy. Not just, you don't need an emergency you need that clarity of vision. Life, it's complicated. So if you've been in this situation, let me speak to you directly, to people. You've been molested, you've been, raped as a child, whatever it is, please seek help. Please seek help and talk to qualified help. Don't talk to, sometimes parents are the best people to report it to, but sometimes they don't have the skills to handle the emotional stress and turmoil that really comes with that revelation, because sometimes it's the parents' fault exposing their children to these people, then that turn around and molest them. So if you're over the age of 18, whatever age you are, speak to somebody, reach out to counseling if you can through your the school. I got my counseling through my college. So I went to university. I looked at the statistics on women that have been molested. Most of them, like you said, end up getting molested again, cannot find comfortable or stable relationships, are not good parents. And I was like, that doesn't sound like anything I want to be a part of. So I need to take a step today. And I went to counseling for myself. And it was available through my school. Shout out to Grambling State University. But it was very, very critical in me being the person that you see here today.
Okay, so you went to a lot of years of counseling, and counseling helped you to get to the point where you're strong enough to say, hey, absolutely, I can get past that. I got other things to do in my life.
Absolutely. And I will never let anybody, any event, any thing hijack my future to the point where I can't be the woman that I'm born to be fully. Like that would be a travesty. That would be a tragedy if I allow something that 5-year-old, and it's difficult. I don't mean to minimize this. It's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly challenging. It's incredibly hard. But I don't think that I think I owe it to myself, to who God created me to be, to put in the work that I need, get the help that I need. I've gone through, even over the years, consistently every year, finding mentors, being willing to be vulnerable and show up and lead and show up to other women just to allow me to get to this place of healing. It definitely did not happen overnight.
Oh, now in the book, I'm looking at something here, and I'm gonna read you something that you actually wrote.
Okay.
Truth number 2, middle class is not an inviolable place to be. And I scroll down. This is interesting to me. You stated that you work for a company 20 or 30 years, and by the end of it all, you hopefully get a pension. And middle class is where laziness thrives.
Oh yeah.
Not the flat out kind of apathy where you do nothing with your life. This kind of laziness that leaves you enslaved to the system. Now, if anyone reads that, they're like, what do you mean that I'm being lazy in middle class? Could you explain that?
Absolutely. So there's a thing about classism, right? You have the poor class, middle class, upper class. When you're poor, your biggest preoccupation is finding your next meal, period. You can look at psychology has this thing called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If people don't have food and shelter, they don't care about whatever you're talking about, things like love, psychological needs and belonging. Those things are extra things. When you're poor, your concerns are security, feeding, and shelter, period. You have to get those 3 minimums. When you get to middle class, though, the challenge is that this is like jobs where you can go into cruise control. I'm talking about, I was in a middle class job myself, as a nurse. So I'm looking at working as a nurse or being able to say, okay, I make enough to pay my bills, but not enough to really save for the future that I want. I make enough to send my kids, if I pick up a double shift or overtime, I can send my kids to wherever else. You get into this cruise control mode where sometimes your drive dies. And I found this for myself. When I finished nursing school as a 22-year-old back in 2006, I was like, I'm going to go to medical school within 2 years, but I got comfortable. I had to wake up out of my slumber around 2009. I'm like, what am I doing? This is not what I was created for. This is not that average life, pay your bills, rents, and repeat. I was created for greatness. And immediately I started taking classes to change that. So middle class is very dangerous because you're just good enough where you can talk about the people in the lower class, but then you always have that threat of poverty right there, just reminding you to show up to work another day. And that's where you're just grateful sometimes to have a job, just so you can rinse and repeat, but you're not really living that life of freedom that you know that you're created and born for. You're not making boss moves. You're not looking at entrepreneurship. You're just basically like, I'm going to keep my 401k 5% and match what they match, what master gives me, whoever it is. And that's not what I'm for. So I'm like, if this book is not for average people, so people that want more.
Well, I will say this, and some people may like, well, because I know some people will get highly offended how you speak. But let me tell you how when I met her and what I like about her. The first time I met her, I realized how much she hustled, and like that's my language. I love hustling. I love being a go-getter. I love like not saying that I got to be held back to a certain standard. Yes, being Black in America, you're definitely 10 steps back. And you have a group of people who's 10 steps ahead by design. But if you can overcome all of that and hustle and get it, and yes, she's right. If you are paycheck to paycheck, you're one paycheck away from being on the streets.
Yeah,
that's true. that's the honest truth. You one direct deposit away from being on the streets. Look at what happened during the federal government shutdown when they didn't get their checks.
Preach.
You understand? You don't want to be put in that position. That's why I believe you should have 7 streams of income. No matter what it is. That way, if one go down, you got something else picking up. You get what I'm saying? But I get what you're saying. But some people may because I think a little different. But when people hear that and they say, "Well, I'm working in a job and I went to school and I did this, that, and the third." Well, why you feel? That is laziness, and how can I get to that next level then if it's laziness?
Okay, let's talk about the real system then. Let's talk about industrialization, Phil. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the idea of, let's talk about school, for example, right? So do you know why school was created?
Well, from what I read, the colleges were actually created for the elite. It was not really created for the average person.
I would take that even further back. So if you look at pre-industrialization in Europe, right? Mm-hmm. Initially, people like Queen Elizabeth and all these other people, they didn't go to school. Their parents brought teachers to them in the house and say, teach them Latin, teach them teach them Latin, maybe arithmetic, history, languages, whatever else, right? And then it wasn't until the Industrial Revolution came and they found out that, wait a minute, the only people that could read and write were rich people's kids. So they're like, well, who's going to work in these factories? So they started creating a system where they were actually arresting kids initially to put them in school. If you read about this, it's really terrible. And there's a reason why the average school day, you have 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds going to school for 8-hour shifts and getting the 30-minute break, preparing you for that workforce later on down the line. You're being indoctrinated. And once you understand how the system works, you understand that once you get in, you think you're really getting freedom. And it's just a matter of like, how much are you willing to sell? A job is, bottom line, is someone paying you to do their purpose. Look at companies like Walmart today, right? Sam Walton's been dead and gone, but there are thousands of people that show up every day, wake up every day to serve his dream of a dead man. And glad to do it, boasting about it, happy. There's nothing wrong with that. That's one level. That's that first nugget we're talking about. Security, shelter, food. Okay, we got that. Check. What's the next move? You cannot get complacent. You did not show up on this earth to serve someone else's dream. You have to wake up and say, what am I here for? And go there and grind and put yourself in a position where you can actually reach for these goals and dreams of your own. So when I talk about that whole system of being industrialized, I've been in school my whole life. I'm finally graduating, thank God, in 6 months. But that's something I had to sit back and say, oh my God, the system is really set up for us to stay in it. You have physicians that I know are living paycheck to paycheck. And you're asking yourself, how is this possible? Because they're all part of a system that they never signed, they never knew what they were signing up for. And they're just going with the flows and going with the flow and just repeating the circle over and over again and never really living the life they were born to live. Now, this is some scary stuff. This is not for average people. I'm just going to be honest. And I don't mean to talk down to people, but I'm incredibly passionate about who we were born to be, who we were created to be. And sometimes that's going to come off offensive. That's not my audience, click the like button and move on to the next thing, But if this is for you, if you've wondered, hey, what am I really here for? Do I have the balls it takes to make this move, to push for my dreams and go there? This right here is for you. Get the book.
Yeah, the balls or the ovaries. We'll make sure we put ovaries in there.
All the ovaries, yes. I like
because
that.
we have individuals with that trying to take over.
Yeah, ovaries look like balls too.
Yeah. but something you were stating in the chapter I'm glancing at right now, and like I said, I've learned to do that myself. When you said in chapter 7 about own your own narrative, which I'm a believer in that, turning your biggest critics into assets. I believe in that 100%. But why did you write that?
I look back at the war, right? There's a reason why, even though most of the war is not English speaking, but the language of business is English, the language of entertainment is English, the language of finance is English, the language of history is English. And that's not by mistake. There are more Mandarin speakers in the world. Why are we all talking Chinese? So one thing that the British did and the British Empire did very well, they were so incredibly good at going around the world and documenting everyone else's history. So they show up in Africa and just start writing African history. No one asked them, they're just doing it. So now when you go back on record, you're trying to, they're like, what's the first record on this issue? And it's by an Englishman, or it's written in English, and they're not doing this out of like charity or whatever. They are casting themselves as the heroes in everybody else's story. You see what I mean? So now look at, for example, Jesus. Today, people have to be convinced that Jesus was Jewish. And, the very Romans who killed him now have the holiest place in the history of Christianity, which is the Vatican. You're like, how is this even possible? You know what I mean? Like, people have to be convinced that Jesus wasn't blonde hair and blue-eyed. And you're like, how? They're great at documenting history. In that same sense, if you don't write a story for your life, you're going to believe what society says about you. You're going to believe what your friends think about you, what your parents think about you. You have to have the onus is on you. The responsibility is on you to craft your own story. Because if you don't, you believe someone else's story about you. And that's a lot of that has to do with self-esteem and ability. Just if there's no story, you believe the first thing, you're like a blank paper. People can just use and abuse you and tell you whatever it is you want to hear about yourself. And you've had people at work, people at school tell you about you. And I'm like, I know they're not talking to me because that's not my narrative. I'm reading from a different book. And so I want to really encourage people to take time down to pen who you are or who you want to be. And there's been evidence that has shown that people who write down their goals are more likely to achieve them. People who speak about their goals are more likely to achieve them. So I really wanted to write that to the writer to push them to say, hey, if you don't craft your own story, you're going to be running behind your narrative the whole time. No, no, no. Black people were scientists too, and Black people were artists too, and we were the first humans, and we did that, we did that. All of that's because we never told a story. Someone has told it for us. So now we're running about and we had a narrative for 400 years, constantly saying, this is what I'm not having this conversation. I'm talking about what we are and what we are in the future, and people that are focused on that, like you, and people that are on this platform are really making that push. For example, going to Africa, organizing these trips, educating people, starting this platform. No one chose you to start this. You saw a system you didn't like and you stood up to lead a group of people. And that's incredibly, incredibly bold, courageous, and we are very grateful for it.
All right, Dr. Tina, let me ask you a question. You got your shirt on CNA to MD, and I'm looking at your book, and it shows your transition and how you got to your MD status. So you started off as a certified nurse's assistant.
Mhm.
At that time period, what made you say, "Man, I'm tired of cleaning people's butts"? No offense, but I'm just tired of doing it, and I got to move on to the next step. What got you to that point? Because that may be some people right now that are CNAs that could be watching the show or just casually stopping by watching. What would you say to them that got you to transition?
Okay. So again, the initial story, my goal was to never be a CNA. It was just a stop on the ladder. And I was very grateful for it. So let me tell you the crazy thing. I came here to be an MD, period. That's it. I met the first day I met my husband. I'm like, I'm gonna be a doctor. This is what we're doing. If you're for it, cool. If not, keep it moving. And that was cool. And that's what I've treated friendships like. And that the man I married today, he knew about that. My siblings, my parents, I was just very frank about who I am. And I always called myself by who I am. So the first thing is get very clear in your vision of your head of what you want to be. Part two is like, okay, this is MD over here. That's a 10-year play. That you need some stamina to run this race. You just can't, it's not a sprint. This is a marathon. So I'm gonna need some accolades to land back. So I was like, okay, I'm in Louisiana. What's my major? Math. Okay, what can I do with a math major? Oh, teach high school? I think not. Bye. Not, no, thank you. I was like, what can I do? And my sister really pushed me to nursing. My ultimate goal had always been MD. So I was like, okay, I want to be an MD. This is what I have. I have $100 in my bank account. What can I do tomorrow? All right, maybe I could get 30 extra dollars, take a Greyhound ticket, go to Florida, spend the weekend studying for my CNA license so I can be, pass the test and be a CNA in a week. That way I could get a job making $7 an hour. And you may look down at that job. I wasn't making $7. I was making like $5.35 an hour or something like that. I don't know. It was very low, whatever it was. But that job, I did my best at that job. I treated it like I was an MD there, not like boastful, but I was diligent to do my work, showed up on time, worked as hard as I could. And before you knew it, my DON gave me a scholarship where I was getting an extra 45,000 a semester. And so it was just putting that next step forward, next step forward, next step forward kind of thing. And then when finishing with an RN, taking my MCAT, getting ready for medical school, and then leveraging again on top of that. So the blueprint is there. It's like a GPS map. You got to plan your steps out 5 in advance, 10 in advance. And that's what this book does. That's really what CNA to MD does. It's like we give you a strategy. So it's not just like this idea, I want to one day be a doctor. No, what are you doing tomorrow to make sure that dream happens for you in 10 years? And it's that kind of commitment, that kind of leverage, and that kind of work ethic that puts it. Will Smith says something. It's like the difference between him and other people is that he's willing to die on the treadmill. I just love that. Is that idea where you're grinding for something you believe so hard that you're like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And it's not anything like, like get rich or die trying, but just that I just believe in myself enough that I'm going to invest my time, my emotions, and my money, the little that I have, the $100, whatever it is. But the book goes into very clear detail, every single next step. And you can use that as a template for your own life, dentistry, work, entrepreneur, whatever it is, and set it up and follow that path.
Yeah, I definitely, agree with that. Anybody that's making a push, to do for self, I'm really a big believer in that. I don't believe, even though, like you say, the system is rigged, that we shouldn't try. And then also, you know, just the advantage of getting education here opens you up to all kind of opportunities outside this country as well.
Yeah.
That you will know. So I just believe, like you stated, that you have to make a push. You can't just, and that's why I am about my children, how I believe in them, why I push them toward. Or anybody that know me, I don't believe in, you just staying down and you're not trying to progress, or even if you do have a job, what kind of side business you doing so you can transition to that business, because working for somebody, you're not going to become a millionaire. It's just not going to happen. We both know that unless you're the CEO, and it's how many CEOs are in companies right now, and you're not going to ever see a lot of that. So, your book itself, how can people get that?
So you can get it from Amazon. The title of the book is How to Craft Your Life's Blueprint, and you can get it from Amazon. You can order it from your local library. All you need to do is get the ISBN number and request it, and your library can get copies for you. You can, it's well priced, to target most markets. And again, the idea here is to get people, nothing gives me more joy than just seeing people doing what they were born to do, Phil. That brings me so much peace and joy, and that's the best. Nothing, no diamond, no car, no nothing can ever compare to that feeling, and that's what drives me. Again, Amazon, you can get it from there. You can get it from your local library, and hopefully come into bookstores near you soon.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you get the book. It definitely will be a good read. Like I said, I got to thumb through it myself. How to Craft Your Life's Blueprint with Dr. Tina. And like some of you are in the medical industry right now, so your platform CNA to MD. If people are CNAs or RNs, they could join you on that platform, and they can get some coaching as well. Correct?
Yep, to level up. So what we do with the platform, we're healthcare, and you can see my shirt. We're healthcare education and career consultants. So a lot of times I see people that just go take programs like paying 20K for a medical assistant degree. I'm like, what? That's asinine. Just flush money down the toilet, or just wanting to even say, hey, I want to be a pharmacist. I don't know how to do it. What are my next steps? How do I plan this thing out? And that's what we do. We sit down with you. We work with you. We craft your own tailor-made plan. I don't want you to do what I did. I want you to do what you were born to do within the confines of how you can do it. So if you're a single mother, we write you a plan that doesn't leave you being a dead meat mother or a single dad. But if you're an 18-year-old, your plan is very different than a 35-year-old who's changing careers. And that's what CNA to MD does, is teaches and mentors. Again, with the idea of bringing more diversity in healthcare.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure, like I said, you check out the book. And you also, if those of you who are interested, go to cnatomd.com. We put the links in the pinned comment. As always, it'll be down at the bottom, first comment you will see. But Dr. Tina, thank you for joining us today. You shared a whole lot, and that's good that you're open book and transparent.
Yeah, Phil, and I would say this, the book, and you can attest to this book will not leave you indifferent. You're either going to get very mad or you're going to get mad enough to take some action on your own life. And that's who I am. As you've met me, I'm authentic to that thing, but I do not believe in complacency. Either way, this book will force you to make a decision.
Well, as I leave you with the words of Mr. Nancy, anger gets things done.
Thank you, Phil.
It's the truth, though. It is a God's honest truth. Anger do get things done. So, all right, Dr. Tina, thank you for joining us on the show today.
All right, thanks.